Thank you so much, Madam Toastmaster of the Day. Welcome to the workshop. This is considered to be my 2.0 OBS workshop. Last year I did one and it was too much information, not enough time. This time I try to narrow it down to the area in which will be used in Toastmaster meetings. And I got more time. So hopefully I don't go over time. Let's get to it. What is OBS? Let's start with what is OBS and why should we use OBS? OBS is an open source software. It is multiple platforms, so you can use it on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And the fact that it's open source, you can be sure there's not going to be malicious code in the software. And some of the cool things that you can do with OBS, if you can see right here, I'm in the cockpit, and I'm also there with R2-D2 in X-Wing. But you're going to say, so Zoom can do virtual green screen or virtual background. But some of you might get this window. Many of my computers in my house get this window because the computer is too old and it's not capable of doing virtual background. And the virtual background in Zoom, it's different from OBS because in OBS, we use the traditional green screen, chroma key, removing the background. Where in Zoom, they use software which constantly look at your screen, your picture to differentiate you and the background. So therefore, the computer has to be faster. You need to have a graphic card. And the computer work constantly looking at you and try to separate you from the background. So slower computer, older computer. In fact, my computer is 7 years old. It can use virtual background, but I rather use OBS because there's a lot more things I can do in OBS. For instance, I can put myself in picture mode, and I can, if that's too small, I can put it side by side and have my presentation next to me, or I can be in the presentation and use a video background. I can add logo overlays, more logos, and I can bring in Windows capture. I can basically add anything. I can do online training. I can bring in PowerPoint presentation. Anything with Windows, it can be captured. I have a timer script, which is going to automatically change color according to the time it's given. That can be used in OBS as a window also. Let's go over how OBS works. In OBS, you're going to basically take the feed. In this case, will be your video. You can also take the audio and put it through. See how I circle the audio, but we're not going to cover the audios today because we don't have enough time. You can also put the audio through OBS and add effect or make your voice sound warmer. Do all kinds of things with audio, but let's just focus on the video for today. We're going to plug the audio directly to Zoom. And for everything that you do, you put it through OBS. And OBS has a plugin called Virtual Cam. It will create a virtual camera and it will put that through Zoom and throughout the internet. And also with OBS, you can do local recording. This is very useful because as a Toastmaster, as a public speaker, sometimes you go to a meeting and you feel awkward to ask them for the recording. You can record yourself, your session, and you can learn by how you do it, by rewatching yourself. As you can see here, OBS will take video, audio, and display. You can plug in external display. You can plug in display from your gaming console. That's why lots of gamers use OBS because they can use a capture card and get the game that they play on the console and plug it into OBS. And then OBS uses virtual cam, broadcast it out to wherever you want, Zoom, Google, Teams, Facebook, and YouTube, and many more. You just use it as another webcam. Here is how you set up. If you're not logged into the meeting, you can go to the setting and select from the drop-down menu and choose OBS virtual camera. And if you're already in the meeting, you can just click this arrow and just switch the camera to OBS. Just make sure that you start your virtual camera. There's a button down here to start virtual camera. And in Google also, just go to the camera setting and just select OBS virtual camera. Same thing with Skype. It'll show up. After you install OBS, it'll show up as a virtual, like a hardware that you can select. Just make sure to start the virtual camera. Now let's go to the installation and setup. The installation is very straightforward because it's free. And you just basically go to the website, obsproject.com, and download the version according to your operating system. In my case, I use Windows, so I'm going to download the Windows version. I just click on the button and it automatically downloads. You don't need to give them your email or nothing. It'll download to your computer. And the installation is a breeze. You just follow the screen. Basically, just click next, next, next. Because if there's any adware in the installation, if they try to sneak in any malicious code, the community is going to know because it's open source. So just click next, next, and then after the installation finished, you launch it. The first time, you're going to see an auto configuration wizard. You can let OBS determine how well it would do, and it will give you the recommendation settings that guarantee will not crash. Now you don't have to, you don't have to take the recommendation. You can always try to push the limit, and there's tricks that you can do to squeeze out all the power from your CPU to push your broadcast a little higher. In this case, I'm going to let it determine my best possible, and it spit out 640 by 360. That is below standard definition. But I can go as far as, in this computer, 720. And by doing some tricks, reduce the frame rate and reduce the bit rate, I can still go with 720 HD output. After that, you can either apply it, or if you apply it, you can always go back to the setting and change it. Now let's go to the setting before we start doing anything with OBS. The setting is pretty much, it works out of the box. You don't really have to do anything. I will suggest you have a look at the output and the video. Those are the two things that I recommend. The video, this is the first drop-down menu that might be a little small. That is the canvas. That is basically the area that you'll be working with. The second one is your output. I will suggest that you use the same numbers, the same resolution. So the program doesn't have to calculate or make adjustment. It can just broadcast whatever out there on. You get what you see, basically. Otherwise, if you choose, especially if the aspect ratio over here, it's not the same. Like in this case, it's not the same. I don't know, there's some obscure number on top. That's my native laptop resolution. And that is 16 by 9, the standard widescreen. So that means that the OBS have to do calculation to encode my video I would just go with the same number, whichever I want to broadcast or to use as my canvas. In this case, I'm going to use 1280 by 720. And let me talk about the output resolution of Zoom for a minute. Zoom has a default of 720 standard, not even HD. If more than 3 people are in the meeting, it automatically kicks in 720 standard, which is lower than 720 HD. And on YouTube, 720 is not considered HD anymore. But for the optimal connection of members around the world, Zoom thinks that 720 standard is the best possible solution for everyone to connect and to meet. We can toggle the 720 HD to improve our quality, but that has to be done by the Zoom master or the host of the meeting. You can request that your meeting is held in 720 HD. If you're using a pay account, you can go to settings, go to in-meeting settings, and toggle on the group HD video. And that will force everyone to have a little bit better quality. You can also go up to 1080p, which is the standard HD video, but for that you have to make sure that everyone in your meeting have enough bandwidth and computer power in order to encode that much information. And you have to be a business or corporate user to turn that on. Now let's jump back to OBS quickly. The next setting that I would recommend, I myself, if the default theme is going to be like this, dark gray and light gray, I'm getting old and it helps me to see better if I switch the theme to a little bit more contrast. That's the theme that I like. You don't have to switch it, but it makes me see better, especially I use 2 computers and I want to make sure that I can glance to the other one and see immediately whether or not I press record. Okay, let's go to the main window. After install it, go to the setting, set your resolution. Before we go to the user interface, I want to explain the 2 items that people get confused in OBS, which is the profile. It's sitting right next to each other. Profile and scene collection. Profile, you don't really have to do anything with profile in OBS unless you plan to have more than one profile. Profile having to do with the settings. And if you are a streamer and you stream to multiple platforms, you might want to have different profile for different platform that you go to, because each profile will contain the stream key to access the server. And for me, I have 2 profiles. I just use one as a standard meeting, 720. As I explained, all meetings are conducted in 720. But I also have a 1080 profile in case I want to do my own local recording. So I switch back and forth between 720 and 1080. And as for the scene, on the scene collection part, within the scene collection, there are scenes. Within scenes, there are sources. Now, I would compare this to a book. A scene collection is like a book. And every scene is a chapter of your book. Every source are like the page in your chapters. So each scene collection, I have scene collection for different type of meeting, different type of roles that I would do. And you can switch back and forth between scene. And within that scene collection, you can have elements and scenes that you want to do for certain meeting or for certain presentation. Let me show you. That's the profile tab. Like I said, I have 2 profiles, one for normal meeting and one for local recording. And as for the scene collection, you can add new scene on the top, duplicate the scene that you already have, rename it, remove it, import and export. Those are some of the scenes that I have. Down here is where you create the scene. And this middle box is your sources. That's where all your sources for that particular scene, all the sources live there. And you can toggle it on and off with the eye icon. You can lock it, and you can arrange it by using the up and down, or you can just drag it. And it works like Photoshop. Whatever on top, if it's transparent, you can see through it. Let me show you some of the source that we are definitely going to be can be used in the Toastmaster meeting. Now, I'm not going to go over the audio because, like I said, we don't have enough time to do the audio. Color source. If you don't want to go out and look for graphic to put as your background, you can just add a color source and you play around with the color that you want. In the theme that will be giving out tonight is I have lots of color source, and all of them have the Toastmaster theme color. Next is the image source. If you use image source, if it's a transparent image source, you can lay it on top of each other. Like I said, it works like Photoshop. So you can have your camera. If you don't have green screen, you can have a frame around you, and you can add logos. You can add background as a bottom layer. On top of that, you can add many more things. The sky is the limit. Your imagination is whatever you want to do with it. Next is the slideshow, image slideshow source. This works almost like the image source, except you can stack it on top of each other, and you can have your own slideshow within OBS. Now, you can use PNG transparent graphic, so the image seems to float on top of you or wherever so it doesn't cover you basically. And here is one of my surprise box slideshow that I did last year. I used this, I arrange all the graphics, and I tell the story as I click the button to play it through with my story. I use image slideshow a lot with my table topic session. And the media source is one of the interesting one because you're allowed to add audio and video file. As long as the media file that your computer can play and can hear, well, not hear, but because we're not doing audio, but if you can see it, you can display it here. Media source, you can do fun thing with media source. You can get loop background. You can add intro to your presentation before you start speaking. You can have the intro pop up and it automatically goes away when it's over. Or if you want to use it as background, you can keep looping it. And next is the scene source. Now don't get confused. You have the ability to add your scene as a source. Don't get confused. It's helpful when you don't want to keep making the same source over and over again. You can make one scene and put all your source in there. And then you can add the scene as a source. For instance, let me give you an example, like a camera source. You don't want to have to add camera source in multiple scenes because OBS won't allow that. While you're using the camera, it's not going to let you add the same camera. So you want to create your camera in a scene and you do all the green screen, put all the filter you want to put in with that scene. And then when you start building your presentation scene, you can add it as a source. Or per se, if not camera, let's say if you have a countdown clock with background and overlays and you crop it nicely and you want to use it in more than one scene, you don't want to have to create it And then if you need to make change, you got to go back and change it in every scene. By being able to add the scene as a source, it's very helpful. In my case, if you can see on the pop-up right here, I have an audio scene that I add all my audio source in there. So if I need to make change, I just go back to that scene and just make change to that. And it automatically changes within every place that I inserted. Next is the text source. You have the ability to just add text on your screen. And you can play around with the text, change the color, add the stroke or the outline of the text. I use this a lot with my report, especially the time report, because it can read the text from a text file. I actually include this in a template with the report where I just make change to the time report in the text file, save it, and then OBS will pick it up as a text source on the screen. Next is the video capture device. This is basically your camera. This is where you add your camera. I'm not gonna go into detail on this because it pretty much works out of the box. You just go in and select your device from the drop-down menu from there. And normally, if you don't want to play around with the resolution, it will work fine. Unless you want to play around with the resolution, the frame rate, you can go in and play around with that. But otherwise, OBS works out of the box. Next, the last one is the window capture. The last one that I'm going to cover. This is the most fun part I mentioned. You can capture basically anything. OBS allows you to capture the windows. I'm actually using a window capture right now doing this presentation through a media player. And whatever I do, this is the web, I capture it from the web on the presentation. Whatever I interact, if I highlight something, it can also capture the mouse cursor. In this case, I intentionally blow up my mouse cursor and make it very big so I can use it in the presentation and point at things. And for some of our members who like to use PowerPoint or Slides, Google Slides, you can also capture it and use it as a window capture in OBS. As you can see here on the right side, that's Thomas script. It's actually a website. I turn it into a window mode and use it as a time counter. Okay, let's go to the sample template that I'll be giving out because I feel that it's easier to start from something, to play around with something that you cannot break. If you break it, you just delete it and import it again. So you don't feel like, because for the first time I got into OBS, it was a blank canvas and it was frustrating, trying to get something going. And by having a template that you can play around with, it will help you jumpstart your presentation. The template can be downloaded at bit.ly/OBS capitals for Toastmasters with the capital T. After you download it, just extract it. For Windows user, I personally use it and put it on my C drive. So if you use Windows and you extract the content, that folder that you download to the C drive, everything will work out of the box. You don't have to do any setting. You can just turn on the OBS, select the scene, and just start using it. But for our Mac user and then some of the Linux user, you're gonna have to rearrange and relink the file because the file structure on Mac and PC aren't the same, which I'll go through it. After you extract the folder to your computer, this goes to Mac, Windows user too. In case you don't want to have it on the C drives, you're gonna have to relink it. Let's just import it first. You go to the place that you extract it to. In my case, I put it on a C drive, and the file that you want to import is called, there's only one file you can import. There's only one JSON file there. The JSON is the file that you can import. Just select it and click import. And nothing happened because you are still on the same scene that you are at. You have to go and manually select the new scene collection that you just import. Now, if you use PC and you extract it on the C drive, like I said, it'll work. You can start using it. But if you use a Mac, Linux, or you want to have it another place, you want to extract it someplace else, you're going to have to relink it. Let me jump to my Linux computer. I don't have a Mac to show you, but it should be the same concept. You just extract it wherever you want, place it in your computer somewhere that you know, and then you go import it to OBS. The first time you launch OBS is going to notify you that, hey, there's a lot of missing links. You want to link it? Yeah, let me import it first. And now we open it. It's going to ask us, there's a lot of missing files. Please relink it. We're going to have to manually click on the box, the new file box. If you mouse over it, there'll be a menu. I arrange it by folder. There's 4 folders in my template: graphic, transition, text, and video. Let's just start with video because the video is on top. Go to the video and just relink it. And then go to the graphic to link the second one. Now, if OBS is going to say that it found some additional match in the link folder, so just click yes and it will automatically add the rest of the folder. So you repeat that for the rest of them. And after you relink everything, I recommend that you go to the scene collection, and which is on top here. Go to the scene collection and duplicate it. So if things go wrong, you don't have to re-import and relink everything again. And then you will get that window. First thing when you go in is the camera. You got to set up the camera first. That's the most important thing before you can do anything. And I put it underneath the dotted line so you know that this is the scene that will be added into other scene. So if you need to make change to your camera, just come back to this scene. When you click on the camera scene, there'll be 2 things there. The camera, which you're going to go and click on properties and select the camera from the drop-down menus. Just select your camera, the camera that plugged in or the one that you want to use. And if you use green screen, I don't want to cover green screen because I already add the chroma key filter to the camera. So if you use green screen and you have green screen, it will automatically remove your background for you. But I also did a YouTube video, so I don't have to talk about green screen in this presentation. I'll put the link in the description of this video or in the chat box. And I also add the green solid color so you can see where all the shadows are at in your... But when you use it, you got to turn it off. Otherwise, you're going to see green everywhere. That is just so that you see how clean your green screen is working. I got 10 minutes. Let's jump quickly to the scene. I have 2 scenes. These are the 2 scenes that I use a lot. Depends on the clothes I wear and how I want to appear. I have the maroon, the Toastmaster maroon, and I have the Toastmaster navy blue. The 2 scenes, they are my 2 main standby scene. And then I have the presentation scene. This is where I start doing my presentation. You might say, why do you have so many scenes? Because you might want to arrange them or set things up differently according to the presentation. Sometimes you give long presentation with lots of background and detail. That's why I want to have scenes for different roles that I'll be doing. I added the background, the cream background and the white background because I find it, someone told me that the speaker looks best with the white background. So most of my speech will use a white background. So I added the white background there too. And I also add the video background, a loop video background for you to start with. And there's 3 loop video for you to play around with in this template. You can just click on properties and just switch through the videos. And you can just go and grab videos from YouTube. Just make sure that it loop properly. Otherwise, it's going to flicker at the end of the video. And then I have the table topic scene, which I used to do my table topic. Within the table topic scene, I have the camera scene way on top because, like I said, it works like Photoshop from top to bottom. If you stack it, there will be a camera scene. And then I have Toastmaster logo on top there. And then I have the slide, the table topic slides, which I use. And I like doing this. Let me crop this back area off. It's bothering me. I like doing it this way. I don't really want to use the share screen, even though the share screen is much more visible because the resolution is high when you share the screen. But I have to ask the host for the permission. And sometimes when you share the screen, it uses a lot of bandwidth. You notice that when someone shares screen, you go, it's like your computer is struggling to handle with the bandwidth. No, it's actually the Zoom trying to provide the best possible solution by lower the frame rate. That's why when someone share the screen, it take over your whole screen and your computer seems kind of not working properly. So that's why I like using the OBS as a background on my table topics. But make sure that the text is big enough. You don't want the text to be too small. You want the audience can visually see the text because like I said, it's going to be broadcast at 720. So just forget the fine print. Like if you want to share an Excel window, it's not going to work because the text is going to be too small. If you're going to need to share an Excel window, you're going to have to share the screen in the traditional way. This is a sample of the table topic session that I did recently. See how I try to make the text as big and bold and the color of the background as contrast as possible. So it's easier for the respondent to see, and I can just keep it up there next to me on the window. So the respondent can just, I don't have to repeat it more than once or twice. The respondent can just see the question. Next is the last thing is the timer. And I got 4 minutes to do the timer. The timer scene, I already have the camera on top. And then I have the second layer is the time report, which I pull from the text file. The text file is in the text folder within the template. And then I have the traditional red, yellow, and green sample. If you want to do the timing manually with the watch, you can just toggle on and off. Or if you want to use the script, it's hosted at sisirata/timer. I'll put the link in the description box. When you go to that webpage, you get this. And if you want to use it, I suggest that you add it as a shortcut on your desktop. You go to the menu, more, and create shortcut. And make sure you check on the open as window. So you won't see the address bar when you open it. And not only that, the next time you open it, it memorizes the resolution of the window. So if you can resize it any way you want. And it'll just memorized. If you open it, it'll be exactly the same way that you used it last. So for this, I would shrink the window a little bit. I will zoom it out to make that bar, that sidebar, a little closer. As you can see, there's a shape a topic preset, evaluation preset, and prepare speech preset. And you can always customize and use custom time if you want to have longer speech or icebreaker speech. When you click start, the timer goes and the color automatically change according to the time. And for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to quickly show you how the time is going to change. Green is going to be 10 seconds, yellow 15, red 20, and disqualify, it'll start blinking red. And that is it, the template for me. Before I go to question, I have an announcement to make. I'm going to relaunch my YouTube channel, and I would like to use it as my pathway project, level 4 pathway project. And I hope to provide tips and techniques on how I can use it to improve my audience, online presence, especially in the Toastmaster community, especially in District 97. So now you can ask me questions without feeling awkward, whether or not I want to answer, I want to help. I'm glad to help. And the way I see it, every question you ask, every help or assistance I can give will help me move forward and get me closer to complete this project. And so you'll be doing me a favor instead. All right, I have 1 minute left. Do we have any question before I go over time? Yes, we can cut off. I'll show you live how I cut off the right there. You can still see the shadow on the side, but I can just crop it by hold on to the alternate key and use that handle to crop it out, and then just make adjustment. But if you have even lighting on yourself and the background, you won't have that shadow. The reason I have that shadow is myself causing that shadow, because I rearranged the lighting tonight for this meeting, and that's why I got the lighting, the edge of my green screen shadow. And another key thing is that you want to be away from your background. But the way I sit, the place that I sit in the room is very limited. I'm basically leaning on top of my green screen. So it's very difficult to set up the light without causing shadow on the... See, it's actually my own shadow, that those black spots that you see, because I sit literally on top of the green screen. If you have space, I explained in my green screen video, if you have space, you want to be away maybe 1 meter from the green screen so you don't cast shadow on the background. What happened is that myself casting the shadow on the background, and I try to rearrange the light tonight, add more lights so that I can get rid of that. But on the day that I record the presentation, I didn't remove all the light properly, and I hope my name on Zoom will cover the shadow, because there'll be my the speaker name on the left bottom. But all in all, to answer your question, DTM Paisan, we can crop it, but if we set it up properly, we won't have that problem. If we set up the lighting properly, but we can crop it out. If we cannot set it up properly and we end up with a shadow, we can't crop it out. All right, thank you. I think I'm out of time. I hope that I can provide some help in terms of how to use OBS for Toastmaster. I try to narrow it down, but it's still a lot of information. But with the template, you can just download OBS and import it and play around with it. If it turns out bad, you can just delete it, remove it, and re-import everything, and you start over. I'm Toastmaster of the day.